Hey everybody, welcome to the video. We're breaking down the Thursday Night Football showdown slate between the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos, in which should be a very probably ugly game. And it hurts me to say that because I'm a big Browns fan, but I do apologize for everyone that has to watch this game tonight because it is probably not going to be that great. The Browns are missing pretty much their entire offensive unit, and we just learned this morning that Odell is facing uphill battles to play tonight. So it is going to get really gross really fast and breaking this slate down. But hey, football on Thursday night nonetheless, so we'll try to power through. But if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, get an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. Don't just cover NFL, you have NBA going on right now, and NASCAR and the MLB. So if you want to check it out, spreadsheets for all sports, all the data you'd ever need, optimizers, ownership projections, cheat sheets, Discord chat, all that fun stuff. Link is down below. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know this by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified, just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, if you sign over on PrizePicks, you get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. So it's free money. Just use it to your advantage. But I think that's it for the plugs for the most part. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. As always, we'll start with the quarterback position. Try to stay in your seats when we talk about these guys. Stay calm. I know it's very easy to get excited about Teddy Bridgewater and Case Keenum facing off versus each other in a 41-point over game with two slow-paced teams, but we just got to stay a little bit calm here and stay relaxed. So we'll start up top with Teddy Bridgewater, $11,000. Currently my highest projected player in the slate, so I think he's definitely a great option in the flex spot. Like, I'm not in love with Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think he's that great. I don't think he's going to have an amazing game, but relative to this slate, I mean, he just projects better than everybody else. I know he's a little bit expensive, $11,000. I think the question is, do you want to play him in the flex spot? It's just a matter of, do you want to captain him or not, or how much do you want to captain him? Personally, my projections like him in the captain spot quite a bit. Now, I'm going to cap him just because I don't like the roster, like stiff standing quarterbacks too often in the captain spot. I usually try to go like 5 to 10%. Guys like Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, I'll probably bump it up to around like 20, 25% depending on the slate. Like Josh Allen, a couple nights ago, I had around 22, 23% Josh Allen in the captain spot, which is more than I do for most quarterbacks. So Bridgewater, I'm not sure exactly where I want to go yet. I might like cap that at 15% just because of how this slate is, but I think he's a fine cash game play, obviously. If you're playing cash games, you're going to want Teddy Bridgewater in your flex spot at the very least. You could captain him. I prefer a pass catching option or a running back or whoever may be in the captain spot, like especially with Dearness Johnson being super cheap on this. I think he's fine in the captain spot, especially in cash games, just because he's going to get that volume. But anyway, for Teddy B here, I mean, not exciting. 250 passing yards per game, less than 2 passing touchdowns. Throwing the ball about 31 times per game with the Browns. Like I said, have not been very good defensively this season. 28th versus quarterbacks and 20th DVA versus the pass line, nearly 2.5 passing touchdowns per game. So Teddy B, obviously a fine play on this slate. Case Keenum, $9,400. I'm a little bit concerned for Case Keenum. We don't know what to really expect. He got some run last week in the fourth quarter, but I mean, we have multiple linemen out for the Browns. We have probably no Odell now. Both starting running backs are out. The one positive thing for him is that Jarvis Landry is expected to get activated off the IR, so that's definitely a big boost for him. But there's not many weapons to get the ball to. Donovan Peoples-Jones is pretty good. Anthony Schwartz is a burner, is a rookie. And then Rashard Higgins has been solid for Cleveland for the past couple of seasons. But, I mean, Case Keenum is not that great of a quarterback. I can't really expect too much here. The Browns do have the higher implied team total, 21.25. They're 1.5 point favorites, but I'm assuming they like to run Dearness Johnson to the ground more than anything in this game, so I can't really see Case Keenum having a big ceiling game. If you don't play him in cash games just because he's a quarterback and he's less than $10,000, sure, go for it, but I don't think he's a must-play by any means, as the Broncos are allowing the third fewest points per game to the quarterback position. They are 21st DVA versus the pass, but still been stingy versus quarterbacks this year. I don't mean to put Case Keenum down too much. I think as a backup, he's one of the better backups in football, and he's had plenty of time with Coach Stefanski, so he knows the system well, so that can work in his favor too. It's just with all the injuries the Browns have, I think it's really going to hurt him. But he does have a good tight end group, and he does have some decent secondary weapons outside of Odell on this team. Then moving on to our lineup here, as I said, it's a pretty ugly slate. No Baker. Bridgewater's questionable. He's going to play, though. Nick Chubb out. Kareem Hunt, IR. Jerry Jeudy, IR. Odell down here, questionable. He's probably going to be out. So lots of red on this screen. It's a bloody Thursday. But anyway, let's just plug in Teddy Bridgewater in the flex spot. If you want to captain him, go for it. It's not that hard to do so, but we're going to plug in Teddy B for right now. It's going to leave us just under $8,000 left per player. And we could plug in Case Keenum here. I think he'll be popular in cash games, especially in the flex spot. But as for right now, we'll see if he fits at the end, but I'm not going to force him in at the moment. And then moving on to the running back position, we'll start with the Browns group here first. And obviously, the big thing here is no Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That is the best RB2 in the league. You're taking them out of the equation. definitely going to open up some room for more volume for some of these cheaper guys. So Dearness Johnson, he's going to be your RB1 in this offense, even though he's not priced like it. Demetric Felton is more of a gadget guy who can line up at wide receiver in the slot, although with Jarvis Landry coming back, more than likely, that could hurt him a little bit, but they're still going to get him involved. The guy is actually a pretty talented player, but Dearness Johnson is the main guy here. He's the guy I projected for the most points, as I assume most people will as well. And he's just way too cheap for the roles going to have in this offense. I realize this is a tough spot versus Denver, and there's a lot of injuries on this team, but Dearness Johnson could be in line for close to 20 total touches depending on how this game goes, and they are still 1.5-point favorites, and if they can run the ball with Dearness Johnson for the majority of the game, they will more than likely do just that. The guy's not that bad of a running back either. In limited touches for Dearness Johnson, he actually never looks that bad. And they also added John Kelly, who's only $200, and actually have him projected for a few points, which at $200 is like a 30x, so I'm not saying he's the best play on the slate, but just value-wise, if you need a pump play, John Kelly should get a couple of touches. Maybe he'll get some goal line carries. We can't really know just because we have no idea how this Browns group is going to look like. I mean, I think it's safe to say Dearness Johnson will get the majority of the workload here, and Demetric Felton will get some passing down work and maybe a carry or two. The guy's just a little bit small, so I don't really think we can expect him to get massive volume. Plus, he hasn't played barely any snaps whatsoever this season at the running back position. So I assume Dearness Johnson and John Kelly are going to be like the Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. And if that's the case, John Kelly, I think, does have some value, especially at $200. If he could just fall into the end zone, obviously that'd be a great play at $200. I should mention, fantasy point-wise, the Broncos have been stingy versus running backs, having the fourth fewest points per game. Although they are 20th DVA versus the run, but I mainly just care about the cheap volume that we're getting. I know matchup's not great. I don't think Dearness Johnson is going to come out here and put up 30 fantasy points, but if he can get us 12 to 15 at $4,600, that's not a bad day at all. Then moving over to the Broncos group, we have Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. It's basically a 50-50 split there. Last week, Melvin Gordon saw 53% of the snaps, Javonte Williams at $7,000. If I had to pick between the two, I like Williams over Melvin Gordon. I just think he's the more talented running back, and at some point, they're going to free this guy, and he's going to be pretty darn good. But both guys have had success this year, both averaging around 10 rushing attempts per game. They're about 4.5 yards per carry. Both are involved in the passing game. Williams at 2.5 targets per game, 2.3 for Melvin Gordon, both around a 7% target share. The Browns have been tough on running backs this season, third DVA versus the run, and allowing the second fewest points per game to the position. But it's just been so easy to pass on these guys. That's what teams are doing right now. And I do prefer the passing attack over the rush attack for the Denver Broncos, but if I had to pick between the two, I'm currently going to go Williams, although my exposure will probably be pretty close between the two because there's really not much separating them. So then moving back to our lineup, I think the only thing I'm going to do here is plug in Dearness Johnson in the captain spot. If you don't play him in the flex spot, go for it. But I do like Dearness Johnson in the captain spot just because you're getting that guaranteed cheap volume. Like, he's only $4,600 in the flex. If you look at him in the captain spot, we're talking only $6,900. And if you go that route, we have $8,000 left per player. So we can pretty much play whoever we want because the only expensive guys we have left are Case Keenum and Courtland Sutton. Everybody else is around $8,200 and below. And moving on to wide receivers, we'll start with the Denver Broncos group first, which consists of basically three guys. It's Courtland Sutton at $10,000. Tim Patrick at $7,600, then Kendall Hinton at $2,000. Looking at snap counts last week, both Patrick and Sutton around 90%. Hinton saw actually over 60%. Everybody else were just talking pennies. Looking at target distribution on the season, Courtland Sutton has been the alpha dog, 8.5 targets per game, a 25% target share, and a really nice 43.5% market share of the team's air yards, which is really high up in the leaderboards in the NFL. Then you have Tim Patrick at just over 5.5 targets per game with close to a 16% target share. More of a possession guy with only an 18.7% market share of the team's air yards. Then Kendall Hinton, we're talking just over 2 targets per game, a 6.7% target share, and only a 5% market share of the team's air yards. So basically it's the Courtland Sutton show, although Tim Patrick is still involved in a relevant piece in this offense. But Sutton, he's the guy I want in the majority of my lineups. I think he's a great captain spot. The Browns have not been very good versus wide receivers this season, ranking 24th versus wide receivers, allowing nearly 200 receiving yards per game and 1.5 receiving touchdowns, in addition to being 20th DVA versus the pass. And if you guys watched that Cardinals-Browns game last week, wide open wide receivers each and every single third down. It felt like DeAndre Hopkins, they left wide open to the end zone. So I think Courtland Sutton can definitely have a pretty darn solid game here. And I think he's one of the best captain plays in the entire. Then looking at the Browns group here, it's a little bit tricky to talk about just because there's some injury news here. But we have Odell at $6,800, Jarvis Landry at $6,600, Peoples-Jones at $64, Rashard Higgins at $3,600, and Anthony Schwartz down here at $1,200. The tricky part here is that it sounds like Odell is not going to play, and Jarvis Landry is expected to play, which is obviously big news for Cleveland. If we're looking at snap counts last week, Odell was around 50%, Peoples-Jones close to 80%, Rashard Higgins over 60%, Anthony Schwartz saw just under 50% of the snaps. And obviously, if Odell's out, he's going to bump everybody up a little bit, but it's still with Jarvis Landry coming back, it's going to hurt the secondary guy, so it kind of balances off. But definitely think Peoples-Jones could be in line for a pretty big game. The thing is, though, the Browns just spread the ball around so much. As you can see, the targets are just Yeah, Odell's been the main guy, but everybody else is just getting like a couple of targets here and there. And the tight ends are involved too. You have Austin Hooper, David Njoku, even Harrison Bryant. So they're a team that really spreads the ball around. That's what Baker Mayfield under center. Case Keenum could be a little bit different. Maybe he locks in on one guy like Jarvis Landry, and whoever he does lock in on, yeah, it'll be a great DFS play. But you don't really have a big sample size of Case Keenum with any of these guys playing to really make a foregone conclusion there. So you really have to assume that, once again, they're going to spread the ball around everywhere, and it's going to be really confusing for DFS purposes. But if Landry is a full go, I mean, it's hard not to like him at only $6,600. With all the injuries the Browns have, I mean, they just could run the ball through Jarvis Landry on possession targets. Maybe he gets close to 10 to 11 targets, and he catches like 6 to 7 of them. It's probably not going to be a huge yardage day, but if he's around 70 yards and finds the end zone, that's not a bad day at $6,600. So then moving back to our lineup, keep in mind we still have tight ends, defenses, and kickers to talk about, and I actually think they'll be viable on this slate, especially with the way it's projected to go in Vegas, especially defenses and kickers, although it's going to be windy tonight, so that is something to keep in mind. But the guy I'm going to plug in, Courtland Sutton, $10,000. We can afford him, and he definitely has a high ceiling on the slate. We already have Teddy Bridgewater, so want some pass-catching options with him. If we can fit Tim Patrick at the end, I'd feel pretty good about that because he gets not quite the targets Courtland Sutton, but he's definitely the wide receiver 2 in that offense, and not too scared of this Cleveland secondary so far. And even plugging Sutton in, we have just under $7,500 left per player, so we can fill out a pretty darn good lineup. But before we go even further, I do want to talk about the last 3 positions first. So moving on to tight ends, we'll start with the Browns first, just because the Broncos are easy. It's Noah Fant, and he's the guy there. As for the Browns, they use 3 tight ends quite a bit. So looking at snaps last week, we had Austin Hooper at $300. He led the team at 75% of the snaps. David Njoku, $5,400, just under 50% of the snaps. Then Harrison Bryant saw nearly 30% of the snaps, and he's only $200. He doesn't have a role in this offense. He's actually not that bad of a tight end. So if you're looking for a pure pump play, Harrison Bryant's not that bad of a way to go. But looking at target distribution this year, David Njoku has been the main pass catching here, 44 receiving yards per game, 3.3 targets, and 2.5 catches, with actually a decent 12% market share of the team's 0 yards, and an 8 out of 9.4. He's more the big play tight end. Austin Hooper is the possession tight end, and Harrison Bryant, he does have an 8 out of 12.5, which is not bad, and over 8% market share of the team's 0 yards. But we're talking 1.67 targets per game, so the volume just really isn't there. But he's on the field a decent amount, and he is averaging a catch per game. So I actually don't hate him as a pump play in this slate. If I had to pick between these guys, I mean, Austin Hooper projection-wise grades out better point per dollar than David Njoku, because he's just on the field a lot, and his numbers aren't too far off. I mean, they both have an 11.31% target share. And Njoku, I would say, has the higher ceiling, but just for safety, I mean, Austin Hooper is a fine option. You're just not going to get too much out of him. But at $3,800, not bad. In Case Keenum could obviously check down to him quite a bit. And as far as the Broncos go, definitely like Noah Fant here quite a bit, $8,200. The Browns have actually been kind of stingy versus tight ends this year. And they have faced Travis Kelce, so it actually is kind of an impressive number that they're 7th in points per game allowed to the position. Noah Fant's pretty good, about a 20% target share, close to 7 targets per game, 13.6% market share of the team's 0 yards, has big playability, half a receiving touchdown per game. Definitely like a Noah Fant on this slate, definitely one of the better options. And as far as defenses go, you guys know my position on defenses, where I'm not usually big on them, but in this game, in a 41-point over-under, only a 1.5-point spread, the Browns are dealing with a ton of injuries. The Broncos just aren't that exciting of an offense. I actually think both defenses are somewhat viable because they're both pretty cheap, $3,400 and $3,200. If we had like the Broncos at $5,300 and the Browns at like $4,200, I'd be like, probably no thank you there. But at these prices, if they get you like 6 to 8 points, that's not terrible. It's really not. It's like kicker points, which we do roster kickers at similar price points. So I think the defenses are actually halfway viable here. Plus the Broncos defense really isn't that bad, and they're facing a backup quarterback and pretty much a backup offense, really. They're on the road as 1.5-point dogs, but I definitely think they're viable. The Browns defense at $3,200, I think they're viable too. They're the home favorite, 19.75 implied team total against them. Their defense has looked terrible, but with Myles Garrett, there's always plenty of sack opportunities for this defense. Never really excited about playing a defense. I don't usually captain defenses. I typically am a max of like 1% in the captain spot. And even though these guys are cheap and don't grade out too bad, I'm probably going to be in a similar boat on this slate. Maybe I'll up it to like 2 or 3, but I'm usually at a max of 1% of my defense, sometimes even 0. And as far as kickers go, they offer you a very low ceiling, but a decently high floor, so I think they're somewhat safe in cash games, although the way these two teams are, this could be a field goal fest. That would not surprise me. There is a projected win in Cleveland tonight that could hurt the distant field goals, but I'm not out here trying to project kickers. I usually have them projected for around 6 to 8 fantasy points, which is typically kind of where they land. These kickers aren't that bad. Chase McLaughlin's been pretty good this year. He's had multiple 50-yard field goals. Brandon McManus, he's got a bit of a leg on him, but they are kind of pricey for kickers, $4,200 and $4,000. So I think DraftKings is probably thinking the same way as I am, where this could be definitely a field goal heavy game. And when it comes to captain and kickers, I'm kind of similar to defenses where I usually do like a max of 1 to 2%. So then heading back to our lineup here, and keep in mind guys, I do not pre-build these lineups, so don't just take this and copy and paste into our contest because it's probably not going to have the greatest correlation. I'm just seeing what fits as we talk through the video. So we have about $7,300 left for 3 players. I like Noah Fant a lot. I like to be able to fit him in with Teddy Bridgewater. That leaves us just under $7,000 left per player. If we assume Jarvis Landry plays, I don't hate that at $6,600, and that'll leave you $7,300 left. You could throw Javonte Williams in there. I don't think that's a bad looking lineup. You got Dearness Johnson at captain, Teddy Bridgewater with his 2 pass catching options, and Courtland Sutton and Noah Fant. You have Jarvis Landry as a run back for Cleveland, who should get peppered with targets, assuming he is fully good to go. Then you have one of the Broncos running backs, Javonte Williams, who pretty much in a dead even split with Melvin Gordon, should be able to have a decent fantasy day. If you wanted to get a more expensive option from Jarvis Landry, you want to get like a Tim Patrick or maybe even a Case Keenum, you want both quarterbacks, that'll leave you $4,500 left. You could go with a kicker like Brandon McManus or Chase McLaughlin. So there's a couple ways you can go. And obviously, if you don't want to go Dearness Johnson in the captain spot, I think Courtland Sutton's a great play in the captain spot. Definitely think there's big game potential here. And then obviously, if we take Dearness Johnson now, we're going to want him in the flex spot. We don't want to fade Dearness Johnson, really. So that's $5,600 left for your last couple of spots. You throw in a guy like Austin Hooper, another kicker here. So let's just say we plug in the Browns kicker. That leaves you $7,200 left. You could have Javonte Williams once again. So like I said, multiple ways you can go on this slate. It's not an exciting game. We're going to have to try to make it exciting. But with that being said, I think that'll be pretty much it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. Projections, optimizers, ownership projections for all sports, not just football, NBA, MLB, and NASCAR. So if you want to check it out, we got a couple hundred people over there. We're more than happy to have you join the awesome community. And don't forget, this video was sponsored by Prize Picks, just you versus projections. There's no sharks, anything like that. And as of right now, when you sign up there, you can get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit matchup to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. It's free money. Just trying to help you guys out and have some fun over there in addition to what you play on DraftKings. That'll be pretty much it. I will stop rambling, and I'll see you guys on Friday for the final thoughts video.